welcome to 10 Questions, my friend.
Station, brother. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for letting me on, brother. This is, like I said, one of those pinnacle shows. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe you're here. You've had such amazing guests. I can't believe I'm here.
Oh, no, man. I'm super excited to have you here. This is long overdue. Should have had you here a long time ago. So, Manny, let's just jump right into it. Start with question one. You know what that is. What or who got you into comics?
Yeah. So I've kind of been geeked at birth, right? I've never really been I'm not a terribly athletic guy, I'm not super cool. So I've always kind of towed that line. So there was a shop in my hometown called R&K Comics and Cards. It was in Sunnyvale, California, right off of, I want to say, El Camino Expressway. And it had come up at a time when I was just allowed to start riding my bike by myself, all around the city. So I don't know if my friend Carl's parents worked there or owned it or whatever, but we'd go there and hang out, and I could ride my bike there, and I felt like just a totally cool kid, because I could ride without my parents, and so we'd look at comic books. Now I never had any money for them. Jimmy, that's the crazy thing. Never had money for them, but I'd go and I'd browse. I'd live vicariously through the books that my friends would bring home. I remember the first time I actually bought a comic book was from there, and it was a Spider-Man book, and I just remember being so paranoid about getting it home because I was on my bike. I'm like, how am I gonna do this? So I put it in my shirt. And I just rode down, and then I was thinking, dude, if a cop sees me, he's gonna think I shoplifted something. I got this big bulky thing sitting in my shirt right now. But
that's hilarious. So, let me ask you this. So I've had multiple people, it was very different for me growing up. There wasn't a local LCS where you could just go hang out. When you go to an LCS to hang out, do they let you peruse the books? Did they do that back then, or is everybody just kind of chilling out, talking? What is the kind of set the scene for me?
Yeah, so with R&K, the comic books were just like an afterthought, right? They were a sports card place and sports collectible place, and they just had comic books. So it wasn't like some of these new shops where or modern shops where you walk in, it's just short boxes for as far as the eye can see. So they weren't so concerned on that. As long as we weren't shoplifting, and as long as we weren't doing anything unsavory, pushing each other, things like that, it was all good. They did get a little goofy about hanging out with the DVDs and stuff, because I think they were pretty new and expensive.
Right.
But other than that, as long as we stayed by the comic books and we didn't bother the customers, wasn't that big of a deal. We did spend a lot of our time not in the shop, but kind of in the parking lot in the little sidewalk area, sitting down, eating 7-Eleven, and just talking about who would fight who. And I remember one distinct memory I have of hanging out there was X-Men, the movie, hadn't come out yet, but it was getting close, and there was all these fan castings and who's going to do what. And I remember talking about that. And that was the first time I think a grown-up interacted with me on a nerd level. Because one of the guys came out of the shop and they're like, no, that's a terrible choice. Wolverine is supposed to be, shorter and stockier. And I just remember having that conversation, and I thought I did something wrong, Jimmy. I'm like, oh man, I've already failed at this comic book thing, and I haven't even started yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was but yeah, so hanging out in the shop back then, it was a lot of trading cards and stuff back then. I don't remember people being as into books. I remember Marvel Masterpiece cards and a lot of sport, the little sports figurines. I'm going to draw a blank now, which is terrible because I have a toy show. But those action plays or whatever those
I know exactly
what
you're talking about.
Yeah, starting line with the starting line figures.
That's right. Yeah.
All of those were real popular, but it wasn't so much into the comic books. And maybe that's just because the store I went to was mostly a sporting collectibles shop. But I don't remember any of my friends being like, oh, we have to get not like today where it's I have a pull list and these are the books I'm reading and this is what I'm following. A lot of us were collecting kind of haphazardly. We'd stumble into books. We'd walk up to a spinner rack at the grocery store and be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna buy this one, it looks cool. So it was a different style of collecting, and I don't know if that made it I don't know if that made it less stressful, less I don't know. It was a different kind of, just a more innocent time. We were just buying books, enjoying the pages. and not worrying about whether or not Spencer's run is dragging on. We weren't worried about whether
Right.
or not the Beyond story is going nowhere. You know what I mean? Like we were just
Yeah.
enjoying Spider-Man for that day. So it was, I don't know, it was a different time.
Well, I think that's an interesting point. So let's make this question too, because you think I was just when you were saying that, I was just kind of thinking back to when I was a kid, right? And how I was exposed to comic books was, at a supermarket, books sitting on the shelves, and it was about the cover. There wasn't all this social media, YouTube, where people are talking about it constantly. So it was very different, as far as the way you would collect. And I just think that's a phenomenal point. So, like, what do you think about this? As far as like back then, I guess it was a more innocent time where you're really looking at covers versus today. Do you feel pressure to like have a pull list? Like, the fact that you're doing a YouTube channel and you're kind of, you're nerding out. Do you feel the pressure to have the pull list?
Absolutely, and not luckily indies have been really good lately. But I also
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot of indies that like I have to throw on the poll because these are what people are going to be talking about.
Right.
And we make the joke a lot in the Bad Batch that like I'm pulling 15, 20 or more books a week. And I don't even talk about comic books much on my channel.
Right.
But it's just like there's that FOMO. There's that definite FOMO and the want to be an expert at things. Like for years, I didn't care who an artist was. I didn't care who the writer was. I didn't care who the editor was. And now I feel like sometimes I would, because of trying to operate in this space and have authority, I have to be like, oh no, Bagley did that. You know what I mean? There's just a little bit more. It's a little bit more structured. It's a little bit more professional than maybe a hobby should be. Doesn't mean it's any less fun. And I love having the conversations, but it does feel like there is a little bit of a pressure to kind of to stay up on all of the latest trends and knowing who's coming onto what books. And it's deepened my appreciation for artists. It has deepened my appreciation for writers and for good storytelling. And maybe it's just that I'm older now and those are things I look for, but it has taken away some of the purity of just being able to get lost in a book because I'm
No, I agree with
critiquing
that.
it.
I mean, because, especially having a YouTube channel, you feel like, and mine is primarily comic books, right? That's all I really do is comic books. And so I feel pressure to make sure I read and keep up so that when I'm talking about stuff on the different shows that I do, that I have some basis for what I'm talking about. And you're right, being able to name an artist or to name a writer. But now it has too, though. It has deepened my knowledge base having the YouTube channel. I have a much broader knowledge base of comics than I did. Always kind of read, books and things like that. But it has definitely broadened my knowledge base. Has that happened for you?
Absolutely. I remember the first couple times I did lives, I was terrified that someone was going to ask me like, who's your like Burke? One of the first things Burke asked me on Meet the Burke Fam was, who's your what creative team would you like to see? And I'm like, I know like 3 art writers off the top of my head, and I know like 2 artists. So I was trying to. So those have always been things that I've always been nervous about. And I remember talking to Travis about that when I first started operating in the live space for comics. I was like, someone's gonna ask me about so and so's run. I'm gonna know nothing. And now I do have a pretty good basis of knowledge. The way that I've been doing the new videos, looking at these older arcs and doing the trade and storyline reviews has really helped me to see things. One thing that I have noticed though is as it grows, I like less and less and less. Like if you look at my first comic book reviews, I'm constantly like, oh, I thought it was a good issue, this and that. And now I'll see like something that should have been a masterpiece by comparison. I'm like, the inking was bad, the color was muddy. Like it's made me super critical. And that's a good thing for advancing the medium. I don't know if that's a good thing for being a fan, but it's a great thing for advancing the medium of comics. It challenges hopefully editorial and writers to do better, to grow in their craft. Like they're, because they're all watching Chammoro Cinema.
Of course.
That's just absolutely.
Of course. That
Yeah.
was small town collectibles too. I mean, what are you talking about?
Absolutely. They're with bated breath, Jimmy, watching to see what we say. But yeah, so it's made me super critical, hypercritical. Whether that's good for the industry, I think it's good for the industry, but whether it's good for me as a collector, we'll see. I don't want to get jaded. You see these guys in the community that they've been collecting for 60 years, and they're just like, yeah, I only get this type of book because nothing has been good since 1994. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't want to get jaded, but I also want to be, I do like that I'm becoming a little bit more well-rounded.
Well, I know for me, I'm still going to read New Comic Book Day. I love New Comic Book Day. Like that for me is what brought me back in, to the hobby was New Comic Book Day. And that's why a lot of the content that I do is based around that because I do enjoy reading the stories. And for me, it's not I'm not hypercritical about books I read. I'm legit just looking to escape for a little while.
Yep.
But I found myself like really going back and appreciating older books. Like, I did a Golden Age unboxing, like really starting to appreciate the art and the medium during that time. And even the writing for that matter. It's very wordy, very campy. As the years go on, you can see the style change as you go back and read more books. Have you always been kind of maybe like I don't know, a gold, silver, bronze, copper age person, or do you kind of dig modern books and you're, kind of venturing back into the, because I know some of the reviews you're doing are some older titles.
Yeah. So I have been really into modern and indie books. So that's me jumping in. I started at the pandemic. This is kind of the storytelling element that I'm in. But what I have noticed is that like there's a time period in like the 80s which really speaks to my sensibilities. So as I've been looking at that, and it's also things that I thought were modern takes that I saw being done well into the past. Like when I see somebody's art, like one of my favorite artists right now, Francesco Francavilla, when I see his artwork and I think, wow, that's so unique, that's so bold, that's so daring. And then you go back and you can see that Mazzucchelli and Richmond Lewis had been doing that 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So going back and studying some of the history of the art is really helping me to see where it's kind of come forward. So I do think the campier stuff, the older stuff, I have less of an appreciation for just as a reader because it does get very, very wordy. And I've been conditioned, and I think this is Netflix's fault. I'm blaming you, Netflix, for serialized content, right? Because like even when I watch Star Trek now, like I remember just being able to just like get lost in the Next Generation and syndication, just watch that, and now I'm just so used to there needing to be an arc, a through line, that it's hard to appreciate those stories for what they are. So like I'm blaming Netflix for ruining my comic books, for ruining my video, all of that with their darn top-notch serialized content.
Right. No, absolutely. All right. So question 3, and I want to talk because you mentioned it just a second ago, is that, you do some toy stuff on your channel. There's some, different things that you do. Was that always a passion, the toy side of this thing, or is that kind of developed? Because now I'm going through the same thing. Like I am, I don't know. Me and Brock Morgan were talking about it. It's like OCD for collectors. Like I can't stay on one thing. But I have found myself going back and buying like the Wave 1 He-Man figures because I loved He-Man.
Yep.
So I've went back and started buying those. And it's strictly nostalgia, I guess. But that has kind of developed. I always liked action figures, but that's kind of developed since I started doing YouTube and since I started really being in the comic book hobby. Then I found myself wanting to go out and collect these other things. Is that similar for you, or has it always been, one of your passions?
I've always loved toys. There's a bunch of other interviews you can see where I've talked about some things in my past, some different traumas and stuff that I grew up with, violence, drug addiction, things like that. Toys have always been an escape for me. So they're always a comfortable place. They're always a warm bowl of chicken soup for me to go back to. But I think what YouTube has done, and especially operating in this space, in the way that we do social media now, it's Instagram, it's YouTube, it's everything, it's all around these nostalgic and childlike things, has given me license in my mind to be more childlike. To
Absolutely.
there would have been a time when I would have been worried about going into the toy aisle. I was like, well, what's this 30-year-old man doing in the toy aisle? Now I don't care. Now I'm like in there talking to people being like, hey, yeah, and subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'm that guy. But it's given me this license to retreat into adolescence in a way that I don't think is unhealthy, a way that is really fun and helping me build community and helping me actually to become a more authentic version of myself.
Absolutely, man.
You
I
know?
feel the same way. I mean, my wife tells me all the time I'm a 46, a 45, 46-year-old child. Um, and, but in a good way, right? Because you're right. It gives me joy and a joy that I hadn't. I'm just at work all the time. It's work and family. And I never really had, and I know that sounds selfish to say when you're talking about your family, but because I love my girls and they're my entire life, everything
Yep.
I do revolves around them. But the YouTube thing, and plus kind of getting really hardcore back into the hobby of comics and then toys, it's given me something for me. And it's given me a lot of joy. It truly has.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is kind of like I said, it demystifies, like, because in our professional lives we have to present a professional face and be so, there will never be a day, Jimmy, where I am talking about wiring a building in the same way I talk about how much I loved the last issue of Hotel. Like so this allows me to take that off, remove the burden of who I believe society wants me to be, and be able to be the most authentic Manuel that I can. And I don't know, I love it for that. I love it for that. And that
Yeah.
includes toys and video games and everything else that I used to love and took for granted. And it's given us license, Jimmy, to have fun again and to play again. I mean, I'm not always sitting here, making Batman fight Riddler with my McFarlane toys, but like just taking them out and enjoying them, showing them to my children. I don't know. It's so much better than just me going to the office, coming home, mowing the grass, and then sitting in my recliner waiting for the next day.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way, man. Like I think that's wise what you said. It's just added something to my life. I'm a more authentic version of me. I'm very much the business person. I'm very much the analytical guy. I'm very much that guy. That is part of who I am. But there's a big part of me that is a nerd and loves comic books and loves superheroes. And I have my entire life. And venturing back into this, like I said, I've said that the community itself has brought a lot to my life that I didn't know I was missing. As
Yeah.
far as the friendships that I've developed with people like you and Gary and DJ and Slot and all, the
Yeah.
list goes on and on of people that I've made friends with during this journey, and it's filled a big hole for me. But then the fact that I get to be me,
Yep.
that version of me that is truly, truly me, that's not the business person me, is a blessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so absolutely, man. So let's jump over to question 4. I want to talk about, YouTube and like what brought you to YouTube. Like, why did you start your channel?
Yeah. So I started my channel, like I've been doing this a long time. Like I started my channel about, gosh, going on 7 years now.
Well,
Um,
talk about the evolution of your channel, like what it
yeah,
kind of started with and what it's evolved into.
yeah. So about 7 years ago, I left the movie theater. We had just seen Terminator Genesis of all films, and my wife and I were driving, and this happened a million times over the course of my marriage. We're driving home from the theater because in Minnesota, it's like half an hour drive between theaters sometimes when you live in rural Minnesota. So we're driving and I'm talking about the cinematography. I'm talking about why the film should have been better, what they should have changed. And she's glazed over. She's not paying any attention. She's waiting for me to be quiet because you know what? We just got the new Breaking Benjamin album and she's trying to listen. We're not trying to have a conversation about the use of wide shots in Terminator Genesis. So I was like, okay.
I've seen that look many times, Manny. I've seen that look many times.
Why did I marry? Gosh, do you know who was courting me in high school? But so we're driving home and I'm like, you know what? I just got a laptop. It's the first time I had like a computer with a camera on it that like could do this outside of college. Because I had a channel in college where I did like AMVs, like I take video game and anime footage and like put it to rock music. Um, and that was just part of my college experience. But then like I was like, I'm going to talk about movies. I'm going to do this. I'm gonna be the next nostalgia critic. I'm gonna be the next Jeremy Johns. I'm gonna be the next Chris Stuckman. Um, and then I watched that first video, and it's still up on the channel. It's cringy as hell. You can find it on my website too. I was like, it's just, and I was like, this is bad, but it hooked me, man. Like I made that first video in 2016. I released 41 videos over the span of like, I don't know, 6 months. Me, Rockin' Robbie from Pop Culture Philosophers, Daddy Daycare. There was all these different channels. We had all kind of formed what we called the group of pure awesomeness, and we would. It was on Facebook before, because it was before Instagram had really become a thing. And what we would do is we'd watch each other's videos, we'd comment on each other's videos in the group. We talk about the videos that we liked, what they could improve on. And like it was really, really this really cool group. And it's actually something I do miss a little bit. We have it with the Bad Batch because we're a network and we comment on each other's things and try to help each other grow the best we can. But that group of pure awesomeness was so great. And it made me and Robbie become friends.
Right.
So I did that for a long time. And then my daughter was born. And the idea of spending 4 or 5 hours editing a video on who the next Robin in the DCEU should be it was something I could not do. I had never been a father before. I didn't realize for some reason I thought the time commitment was going to be minimal, Jimmy. I don't know what I was thinking there. So I became a vlogger. I spent like 2 years making vlogs, going to different parks, doing these things, these little like 2-minute videos of us hanging out, set to music, and like I was like, okay, so I'm pivoting. I'm not going to be Jeremy Johns. Now I'm going to be Peter McKinnon. And boy, was that horrible. That was terrible. That was a horrible 2 years. It was fun too, making the videos, taking my daughter to the places. But gosh, man, B-roll and shooting slow-mo, all that crap. I was like, and I wasn't talking. And I think the whole reason I started YouTube, consciously, subconsciously, was to have someone to talk to. And when I was making content that was just images with no conversation, no comments, no anything, it was empty. It was hollow. I wanted somebody to talk to. And then the pandemic hit and I had more time. And I was like, you know what? My kids are getting older now. My daughter's 5. I didn't know that my son was going to be born. So I was like, you know, I'm going to go back into this and start really hammering into movie reviews. And if you watch our movie reviews, especially when my brother was part of the channel, when we were Chammoro Cinema, we did a lot of like skits and our movie reviews were really ornate and lots of different shots and angles. We were going to be the nostalgia critic. And then I don't know, man, he's 8 years younger than me. He's got 6 kids. So he's no longer part of the picture. Really.
Yeah, he's busy.
Yeah. So I'm so that's one of the reasons why the pivot now to Manny's Fresh Perspectives, because it really is. I've pivoted back to wanting to be Jeremy Johns, but I want to be the Jeremy Johns of pop culture and comic books. I want to have short 5 to 8 minute videos that you come in, you see, you hear my thoughts. I want to make sure that I'm giving people value in the content. And yeah, that's my goal. My goal is to transition from the long form stuff that Chammoro Cinema is doing into more short, digestible videos. And yeah, that's
cool.
kind of
so have you enjoyed? I mean, are you enjoying that change? I know I've noticed a change in kind of your content and some of the things that you're doing. Are you enjoying that change?
I'm enjoying parts of it. I like the editing process. I do like I like the fact that it's given me license to go deeper into things rather than just quickly reading through 20 books every week and trying to give an opinion, which honestly, Jimmy, I've gotten to a point where if I don't read a book twice, I don't even want to talk about it on Fresh Gets, because I'm not giving anything a fair shake. But I'm burning through 20 books to get it done by Friday so that I can have a live stream and say, oh, buy this book. I don't want to influence your buying decision on something I gave 10 minutes of read time to.
Sure.
So it's kind of nice to be able to take a week and just kind of dive in, learn about the artist, do my research. I like the editing styles, getting back into that. The biggest thing for me has been the analytics, Jimmy. It's a gut punch, man. When you go from getting 500 to 600 hours of watch time, every 28 days to like 25 to 30 minutes of watch time, that's been tough. And that's been kind of the white knuckling, holding the line has been just, do I continue with this transition, or do I go back to what's comfortable just to please the algorithm? So the solution I found was turn off YouTube Studio. I don't put it on my phone anymore. I want to commit to seeing this through, even if it's only for a season. I want to commit to seeing what Manny's first perspectives can do, and I don't know. I'm excited for the journey, I guess.
So let's make this question 5. So for the people who may not be familiar with you that are watching this, talk about all the different segments that you do on your channel.
Yep. So we have, what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you geeking out about? And what are you making? So what are you making is kind of on a hiatus until I start talking to more creators and hammering down dates. That's probably going to be a little bit to the wayside. What are you watching? We talk about what are you watching? But we also talk about video games, TVs, movies, video games. What are you reading is just what it is: anime, manga, and comic books. And then what are you geeking out about? It's toys and collectibles. So it allows me to diversify the content, but more importantly, it allows me to bring people in to have conversations that normally we might not interact with in the insular community we have in terms of comic books, right? Because we all, like you said earlier, we're all collecting toys, but we're not all watching toy channels.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we are, we're watching the ones YouTube told us to watch, right?
Right.
We're watching the big channels. So it's kind of fun to be able to have those conversations, bring those people in. Same thing with the movie people. I'm sure we're all watching Sean and Nostalgia Critic and Jeremy Johns, Chris Duckman, all the big channels, but there's a lot of like small movie YouTubers with really great takes on films. And it's really cool to kind of bring them in and kind of just expand the tent of nerddom, man. So
Absolutely. So I want to backtrack here, and we'll make this question 6 because it was something you said, and then after you said it, my mind, of course, sitting here rolling, and you were talking about the analytics, and I think it's healthy that you, if it was bothering you, that you took YouTube Studio off, right? Because now I am very analytical. All right, like I have to look at the analytics, like I study them.
yep.
I mean, like I legit study the analytics of my channel. And it's almost like a side hobby trying to study the algorithm, right? Like what's working, like looking at other channels and saying, okay, when do you drop your videos? Because I noticed, and I did it strictly as an experiment. I was dropping all my content at 7 a.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
Bueller and I, when I'd done 10 questions with Bueller and I were having a conversation about that. So I thought, okay, he's dropping his early. I'm going to try that. I did that for the longest time. And everything picked up, the views, all that stuff picked up, right? Subs
Yep.
were growing, all that. And then I started looking at some of the other channels, and most everybody was dropping their stuff at 10, 11 o'clock. And there's a place on YouTube Studio where you can see when your viewers are coming on and watching content. So I started really studying that and started looking at it. So I moved it. I changed my time. Immediately my views dropped.
Yep.
Like immediately. It's really odd. And I guess the question, what I really wanted to get into after all that, after I rambled on there, what I wanted to get into was like the mental aspect of this, and how important it is not to let that part of it drive you when you're making content, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I found, it's like my public service announcement for the day, and I talked about this on In the Mix with DJ, is that for a while, like I would constantly look at my phone, right?
Yep.
Like look every 30 minutes I was checking to see, do I have another sub? Do I have another, watch hour? Did anybody watch this video? Like it almost became an addiction in itself. Watching that. Did you experience anything like that? Or do you experience anything like that now?
Oh yeah, and analysis paralysis is very, very real, man. You get, especially when it's YouTube, because we're vulnerable. Man, we're creating something, and we're also putting ourselves out there.
Sure.
You want people. My wife's always like, well, you did this for fun. Why does it matter that only so many people watch it? Well, because you put time into it. It's like it's my child doing the school play, and I want the grandparents and the uncles there to see it. Like I'm proud of what this thing I made accomplished. So you definitely do. And when it's in the palm of your hand, it's super easy to
Yeah.
get lost in the minutia of it. But the truth is, I think that if you take a step back and you watch it from 1,000 feet, you're gonna see growth. Um, I think that YouTube as an algorithm, as a search engine, is interested in consistency. If when you change your time, you're gonna see a drop because it doesn't know when it should promote you, but it'll get there. You know what I mean? One thing I've noticed for me personally is dropping things before 8 a.m. Central is just not. No one's watching my stuff. So one of the analytics that I look at quite a bit on Creator Studio, not necessarily on my phone anymore, but on the app, is out of 10. I always want my next video to be a 2 or a 1 out of 10. You can see it says right there 5 out of 10, whatever. So that's the main analytic that I look at. Like, is my content growing? Is it creating value? Are people coming back? That's the main thing. My click-through rate is usually pretty decent. Usually says between 5 and 7%. So I look at that analytic, and then I look at my audience retention numbers. So it's important to know what your channel is doing. I don't want to discount that by saying like, oh, I took it off my phone and now I don't look at it. I do spend time looking at the analytics. I want to know when people are dropping off. If every video somebody's dropping off 30 seconds in, well, you know what? I need to stop saying off a day and welcome to Chammoro Cinema. I'm your host, Silent Boy Manuel, because they know that. They clicked on it. One of the things I've noticed since pivoting to the comic book space is the change in subscribers versus not subscribers. When I was in the movie space, or in the vlog space, most of my views came from unsubscribed people. Now, almost all my views come from subscribers because we've built a community and we're friends watching each other's videos. So like, they know who I am. I don't need to spend 2 minutes introducing a video. I can jump right into it now. So those things are important. It's important to look at those numbers. But it's also important to know that, you know, if you look at the total numbers, your total retention rate, most of your people are watching your whole video. One of the things that used to paralyze me, Jimmy, was looking at my average view duration and saying, why is it always 50%? But then you go and you look at the actual numbers, those 50% of people stayed almost the entire thing, which means they're watching it at 2 times speed. So
Right.
that's also another bell and whistle for me. I need to slow down the way I talk, because if I'm talking like this the entire time and they're watching at 2 times speed, they're not understanding me anyway. Which is good that I have all the splashy visuals in the back, because at least that gives them something to look at, because they can't understand what I'm saying. So the analytics are great. They're rich. And if you want to grow and succeed, they're important to look at. Otherwise, you're going to hit, at least in some of the conversations I've had with some of the other channels, you're going to hit that 1,500 subscriber mark and you're going to stop, because you're basically, if you're not trying to grow your audience and find out what works and focused on your analytics. And I know that that's not a fun thing, and people don't like to say that, like, oh, we're doing this for the fun, I'm doing this for the hobby, but we're all still also trying to get subscribers. You're going to hit 1,500. You're going to max out of the people we know in our Instagram community. People are going to stop subbing to you unless you go out and get them. Now, if I'm McDonald's, I'm not going to sell a billion hamburgers walking out trying to find every person who wants a hamburger and hand it to them. I need them to find me and come to me. So it's important that we look at our analytics. We know what works. We know what types of content is out there. We're looking at our competition, you know, in terms of figuring out whether or not, you know, if I want Valiant Comics numbers, then I should be producing content similar to Valiant Comics, right? They're not doing the same types of things we're doing. And it's important to look at those things. I think it's important to be realistic about those expectations. If you're cool with stopping and hitting a plateau and just having your channel be the channel you have, that's great. That's great. I think most of us are looking to grow and to do this more. I mean, I would love to do this for a living. Not going to do that.
Sure.
I'm not going to do that with 500 subs. so it's just like, I don't know. I guess my very, very incredibly long-winded, and I hope you edit this down, Jimmy, is that the analytics are super important in determining your path for how you're going to succeed in YouTube. And I don't think that they should be so easily discounted, but I also don't think they should get in the way of you creating content. If you're paralyzed, if you're not making videos, you're not going to get subs or views anyway.
Right.
So,
No, and I'm not adding any of that, because I think that was all very wise, because it's something I think about a lot, right? Because having kids, you know, that are 15 and 13, you know, social media is a huge part of their life. And the one thing, and I've said this many times, is the one thing that really bothers me about that is that they think that how many likes they get on a video means love or it's acceptance or and I always preached against that. And then I started doing YouTube and I started thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to essentially retrain myself that that doesn't matter. You know, it matters. I think what you said was very wise. It's important in what we do, but at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying the content that you're putting out, your audience is going to feel that.
Yep.
And they're going to quit watching you because there's no joy in what you're doing. And that's one of the things I love about you is there's a lot of joy from you. At least it comes across on the screen. Like there's a lot of joy from you in talking about the things that you talk about. And I hope people get that from me too. Now I'm more, you know, like I don't know. I think I'm stiff, you know, like I don't, I'm a salesman by nature. That's what I do. I can talk, but at the same time, I feel like I'm very, you know, straightforward. And it's just an interesting dynamic. And it's something else you said too. Like this is a therapy session for me. So it's, you know, something else you said too was, you know, it's hard putting yourself out there. And, you know, you're trying to put your best foot forward. And if people aren't enjoying that or accepting that, sometimes it's hard to take. And you've got to get past that mental aspect of it and just keep doing it because you love it. But also at the same time, I'm like you, dude. Once I hit 100 subs, I was like, okay, I want 1,000 subs. You know, now I hit 1,000 subs. Now I want 10,000 subs. You know, that's the competitive nature of me. But there's something fun about this, and the fact that you get to do it with a bunch of people you love who love the same thing you do. It's very, very cool in my opinion. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm excited. I'm excited to see kind of where as we're coming. I keep saying this is coming out of the pandemic because it feels like this damn thing's dragging on forever.
yes.
But I'm excited to kind of see how this shifts, how this changes, and how the landscape of YouTube and social media for comic book collectors, how that all moves and shakes. I love the fact that there's so many people that came in the last year that have channels and things because we have so much ability to watch content and to interact with people and to meet new people. It's something it's the joy of being able to go into an LCS and see people, you know, sitting at the pull box and saying, hi, how you doing? What are you looking for? Being able to do that across the entire country and grow those friendships. I don't know. It's just, I love it.
I do too, man. No, there's something very cool. And I'm with you. I'm very interested to see because like you said, as there's a lot of factors like that. I'm interested to see what happens with this YouTube thing because you are coming out of the pandemic. There will be some channels that drop off that just either A, don't have time, or B, they're not seeing the growth they want and they get frustrated and stop. You know, there's going to be a lot of things like that that occur as life truly, truly gets back to normal, hopefully sooner rather than later. And then you've got this political landscape where you've got people talking about censorship and things like that. And you've got people like Joe Rogan pushing people to other, you know, formats. Not, you know, I can't remember the name of the one that's like YouTube, but, you know, do people start shifting because of their political beliefs, or does it stay, you know, YouTube is the thing and you're doing your, you know, comic book content or your movie content or your toy content? You know, does that start to spread across other platforms as time goes on? I'm interested to see all those things.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and that's something that when I first came back to YouTube, if you like watch my channel about a year ago, you'll see a lot of times I say part of the UFTA podcast network, because that's where we had all these shows, all these Minnesota podcast shows. And UFTA was very, you know, I'm a libertarian. I don't talk about my politics very often, but I'm a very, very much a every year it gets worse. Like before I was like, oh, you know, I'm a constitutional conservative. Then I'm a minarchist. Now I'm just a straight up anarchist, like blow the whole shit up. But the for like 2 years I did this podcast, and now it's like, you know, the co-hosts and stuff that I did that with are like, hey, we should get UFTA back. And I'm like, in what world can UFTA podcast exist as a podcast on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter? Like it can't. And it's not even like it's not like just set a hate speech or anything, because that was never our deal. But it was just like I just don't see that existing on those platforms. And then I also don't see the other side of you know what I mean? Like I don't see it being viable on the alternative platforms that you guys are thinking of. So it's like I get that. Like I totally see kind of how these different platforms shift, and
Yeah, I'm
how
interested
that
to
all
see
works
how
out.
that all works out because we're living in a weird time, and we won't get into a big political talk, but it's
Yeah.
it's just a weird time in our country. It's a scary time, to be honest with you,
Mhm.
with some of the things I see going on out there, and I'm just interested to see how those things shift. With the social media companies, like YouTube and even Twitter and and Facebook and places like that. So I'll leave that there because I
Yeah.
could get into a whole other conversation about that. So one of the things I did want to ask you, excuse me, is as we were trying to schedule you to be on 10 questions, we started talking around Christmas,
Yep.
and you were telling me that you had, some photography things going on, some family Christmas shoots and things like that. Do you care to talk about that? Like, or you do
Oh,
photography on the side?
I do. I do. I own a small business here in Minnesota called Haven View Professional Images, and we do graphic design, multimedia, videography mostly, but we also do family sessions and family photography mostly because that's what pays the bills. Uh, as much as I'd love to hunt the elephants out there of product photography and get more corporate videography clients than what we have. I gotta hunt rabbits and squirrels. So I spend a lot of time doing shooting all the flannel, man. Every flannel situation that a family has that needs to be captured on film. I'm there. So yeah, it fall's always a busy time. It kind of from the end of summer through fall as you're getting senior portraits and all of those things done. And I love it. I love it's like kind of like being on YouTube. I get to go out there and I get to be this super enthusiastic an extroverted version of myself that only exists on YouTube and
Right.
when I'm doing sales calls and things like that. But I get to go out there and make people laugh, and I get to capture memories. It's a lot of fun. Personally, I lean more towards liking to do the corporate photography and videography stuff. The videography stuff's probably my favorite thing to do, just because it's something that I've been taking photos for a really long time, Jimmy. So I've kind of got my processes down. Videography is something that I just started doing because I started doing YouTube. So like learning those processes, learning the equipment, there's something super exciting and uncharted about all of that. So yes, I do a lot of work with like theater companies doing promotional videos for their stuff, school districts, things like that. So that's kind of the fun thing that I get to do, and it's my fun side hustle of the many side hustles that I've got going on right now.
No, it's cool. Well, I mean, obviously, you have one of the cleanest looks on YouTube. Like, we had you on Gary B's channel and in the hot seat, and you kind of showed us, your whole setup, and so that makes sense. I think I knew. I don't know that I knew that you were doing the photography aspect of it though. Like you were out, doing those types of, that type of work. Um, and but it makes sense to me because of you obviously have a good eye for what looks good, on screen and things like that. So I just thought that was cool, and I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
So
No, and it's just mostly the reason I got into it, Jimmy, was I needed the equipment to pay for itself. I wanted a DSLR, one just to shoot like pictures of things that I knew I'd be good at, because I had done film photography for years when I was in high school and coming up. So like I knew I could take a good image and expose a good image, but I really wanted to like get a DSLR, but I was always super broke. So when I bought one and I put the money in, I was like, this has to pay for itself. So I had to figure out a way to get that return on investment. And then, of course, with YouTube, I don't know if it's hit you yet, but gear acquisition syndrome is horrible. I've got, I bought boom stands and mics and all these other things, teleprompters. And because I needed all of that gear, that had to pay for itself. So then that just pivoted into Haven View Professional Images. And I've been doing that since 2008. And that's been a whole world of fun. And then buying toys, buying comic books. So that's made my blog game have to jump up in value. So now, between affiliate marketing and running the websites, it's like this whole this whole small hobby of sitting in front of a laptop to talk about Terminator Genesis has become this massive, massive thing that, is generating these revenue streams that are getting quickly spent back into the hobbies. But at least it's kind of challenged me to become more of an entrepreneur and do more of these things.
Cool. So let's talk about that. Let's make that question eight. Is, you put out yesterday, I think that you're now on Whatnot. And what are you going to be selling on Whatnot? Is it comic books, toys? Like, what are you looking to sell?
I'm going to be selling a lot of loose action figures, mostly things that I acquired from dealers and things that I acquired from storage units, things like that. It's something that I love doing. I cannot pass a yard sale, Jimmy. I just can't do it. Like part of my brain just like shuts up. It's like a zombie, coming into contact with brains. I just got to get to it, man. So because of that, I acquire all these things. And then another thing is I don't like to say no to people that are this is horrible because I do it all the time in my 9 to 5. But like when like there's a guy in town here who deals in toys and antiques. And if he's got, a box of stuff he wants to sell, like I have a hard time just telling him no. So like under my desk right now, I've got boxes of Digimon figures and all these things. I was like, I need a way to move these without having to create a new Shopify site and take photos and manage inventory. I'd much rather do what I love, which is talking to people and do it like this. So there'll be a lot of toys. There'll be some comic books, but I think that the majority of what you'll see are toys, collectibles, antique drinkware. I don't know, just whatever fun stuff I happen to acquire that week.
That's cool, man. No, I mean, and Whatnot seems to be, really, I think it's like it's the next eBay, I guess, just more fun.
Yep.
And yeah. I think, you got a lot of people going that direction. What do you see Whatnot's place in this thing going forward?
Well, Whatnot, I think that the types of sales that you're getting on Whatnot, I think that's going to continue to be huge. Whether or not that's Whatnot remains to be seen. I more see Whatnot building up all this infrastructure and this client base and then selling off to Meta or whoever. Realistically. But right now it's a lot of fun. It's fun to get in on the ground level. It's fun. They could not have done a better job with picking their ambassadors for the platform Skeff, Comic Man Andy. These guys are such dynamic personalities. Yeah, and so when for them to be those spokesperson, getting people excited and energized for this platform is just, it's amazing. So yeah, and the idea of doing these lives, because one thing's, everyone's been on or has done a live sale on YouTube or on Instagram. And when people are claiming and bidding, and then you're trying to make sure that the payment went through and you're handling all of this stuff, having a platform that does that all for you, that's just genius. And also there's a competitive aspect to Whatnot, which drives sales profitably. I hate to say that, but
no, but it's true.
Yeah. Like if I see, I don't know, Nokosama 65 is buying every freaking loose TMNT figure I'm going for, I'm bidding harder. There's fun there. And I think that the fact that we know each other too helps to drive that too, because now you're busting balls, you're having fun. I don't know. It's definitely capitalizing on the social aspect and ease for the sellers. And they are very much a buyer centric platform too. Like I don't get paid until the item gets into your hands. You know what I mean? Like they're watching out for buyers, but making it easy for sellers. The commission rates are not horrible when compared to other platforms. And you get to have fun with it. I think it's going to be something I think introverts are going to continue to go to eBay, Mercari, and Facebook Marketplace. I think that's going to be, and also I think more casual sellers are going to continue to use those platforms. But I think that I think a lot of us are going to use this to push our personal brand and grow our personal brand. And I think that it's a really smart move. I don't know. Yeah. I'm excited for Whatnot.
Yeah, no, I agree too. All right. So last two questions. Let's have a little fun. So question 9, and where you do the, or kind of we're into the movie reviews and things like that. I was interested your thought process about the Disney Plus series that have been out, and you may have talked about this on other streams, and I may have missed it. I was just interested to know what you think about what they're doing on Disney Plus. Like Hawkeye, for me, the most recent one was probably my favorite one, and I've said it before, maybe because my daughters watched it with me and they were really into it. Like they loved Kate Bishop, and like they loved it, and I loved it. I thought it was one of the best ones that they've done thus far. Like, what's your thoughts on what kind of Disney Plus coming into this? And Book of Boba Fett's out right now, and I'm a Star Wars fan, and that one's been up and down for me so far. So I was just kind of interested to get your thoughts on some, Disney Plus in general, and some of the shows that have been on there.
I think Disney Plus will always fail to meet some of our expectations because we want like a steady stream of content, and they're getting better at that. But I think that it's always going to be on the, that first year I almost dropped it. I was like, there's nothing on here for me. And now it's become, something that we watch a lot. I think it will always fail to meet our expectations as hardcore fans. But as a father, dude, I love that thing. I mean, as much as I'm sick of hearing that damn Australian dog Bluey talk over and over and over again, say the same. It's only 2 seasons on there, honey. We cannot be watching this for the 100th hour. But it's great. It's great to have everything consolidated. It's great to have a place where I know that the content's going to be family friendly and all that. Disney's doing a great job there. The content that they're putting out, I'm with you. I loved Hawkeye. I also love Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I like the more punchy, shooty MCU heroes. So those have been great. There have been ups and downs. There's some things that there's some shovelware, to use a video game term, that's on there. I mean, there's stuff that like, oh, okay, this isn't really a show, Disney Plus. Come on. It's a clip show of where Vision came from. We know that. Anyone that's going on Disney Plus to find out who the Vision is has already seen everything in the MCU.
Yeah.
But I think that they're doing a good job. I think that the quality of the shows is I think some of it's suffering from the same types of things that Netflix suffers with like Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones. It's like one episode too many, and they try to fill that space, and it makes the episodes makes the pacing feel off. Like you can be super excited about the first episode, then you're like, gosh, this is dragging. I don't know why they feel. I'm sure that there's a dollar reason why like 6 episodes is what it needs to be, or 8 episodes or whatever, but there's always like one episode too long. I think Book of Boba Fett's doing the same thing. Like they're padding the runtime with all these flashbacks. I literally just rewatched the 3 episodes. If you just skip flashbacks, you lose one episode and like parts of the other ones, but it flows way better. Like I without getting into spoilers, like I love Star Wars. I don't need to know so much about Tusken Raiders, brother. It's just
me neither, man.
it's like goodness gracious. Because Boba Fett is so stoic and has been stoic for like the entirety of the time that we've known Boba Fett, like this isn't adding anything. It'd be one thing if he was a whiny, pretentious dick, and then like all of a sudden he turned into like, this is Boba Fett now. Like he's the same Boba Fett he was in Return of the Jedi, just older now, and he I don't know what he was eating in the Sarlacc pit, but he's definitely showing in his midsection. But that Boba Fett's the same Boba Fett. Like there's no personal journey here. We're just watching him do something else as Boba Fett without the armor, which is
and it's
infinitely less
he's a character that had very little screen time, in the actual Star Wars movies, but was beloved, right? Just because he looked super cool. And then you're kind of taking on that. Like I'm hoping for more because I love Boba Fett. I love Star Wars, but that one's been really up and down. Like the first episode was okay. The second episode was pretty good. The third episode was okay. It's, but I have to take those shows as a whole. Like I have to, I really shouldn't watch any of them. I should wait and binge watch them all at one time. I usually enjoy it, but even Mandalorian and those shows I liked better once I've watched them all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the problem I think Book of Boba Fett runs into. Like they made a great Boba Fett show. It's called The Mandalorian. Like we didn't
Yeah.
need this other Boba Fett show. And I also think it's kind of weird that the decision that they made with the storytelling. Like there is a audience for a dark crime drama for Star Wars. Tatooine is not the place to do that. Like
Yeah.
it should be on like a Coruscant or something. Like you know what I mean? Like somewhere where the criminal underbelly can really move. We could have lots of interesting characters. Like Tatooine it's just another desert planet, and we watch The Mandalorian where they spend a lot of time on desert planets. Like it just I don't know. It's a problem because I want there to be great Star Wars, and I'm loving Star Wars, and I love Tamura Morrison's take on Boba Fett. I love Fennec Shand. I love so many elements of this show, but it should have been something different. Like and that's not fair. I'm not Robert Rodriguez. I'm not Jon Favreau. I shouldn't be able to tell them you need to do this creatively. But damn it, they should have done something differently creatively.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. All right. So, question 10, last question. And I know you take your role as being a father very seriously. We talked about that before. Um, have you been able to share your passions with your kids or either one? I know your son's just born, so it's not, but your daughter, has she, like latched on to any of the nerd nostalgia stuff that you do?
Oh yeah, my daughter's got a short box of comics that sits by her bed. My daughter, and for those who might not be familiar, my daughter is adopted, and she is so much like me. It's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. We spend a lot of time singing show tunes. We spend a lot of time dancing. We're both super into nerdy things, and we were collectors. We like to collect. We just like to acquire. Much to my wife's chagrin, we just like to acquire stuff, and it's so cool. My son, on the other hand, my son is gonna play football, possibly hockey. He's gonna be fixing car. Like he most of the toys. If you get him a toy, it's gotta have wheels on it,
Yeah.
or it's got to be a wrench or something he can take apart. Like my son is very very much my father-in-law's like dream child, right? So like it's really cool to see the dynamic between the two. My son does get into a little bit of the nerdy stuff. He loves the Hulk, the 90s Hulk television show. He likes both seasons. Me personally, I think season 2, when they put She-Hulk in the Hulk, that's the weaker of the seasons. Not because of She-Hulk, but just because She-Hulk as a character's super one-dimensional and she takes over the show. It's kind of like when they made Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters. It's like, no, the character is cool in small doses. All right, we didn't need Elvira or with Pinky in the Brain or whatever. Like we didn't need that. So anyway, he's getting really into like that. He likes the X-Men 90s cartoon show.
Cool.
But so I'm hoping there's still hope that I can. There is so much hope that I can make sure that this guy has no prospects to go out to for his junior prom. Like there's still hope there. But I just don't see it coming. I just don't see it.
I love it, man. Well, my youngest daughter, my oldest daughter really enjoys the TV show. She just watched Daredevil, loved it because we went and watched No Way Home. I guess that's the new Spider-Man movie, and Daredevil was there, and some of her friends, really are into that, and so she came back and watched Daredevil. So we've been talking about that. She enjoys that. My baby is like me. She's a collector. She likes to collect things, but she's really into music. And there is an old music. Like she likes vinyl. She's got like an old soul. Like we will, some Saturday, we're not today because we're supposed to get another snowstorm, but a lot of Saturdays when I'm home, she and I will just go out and get breakfast, and then we'll hit some antique shops up in the area, and we go look for old vinyl. And then we come back and we hang out and we listen to music and just kind of chill out. And we listen to the songs, and it's really become this great bonding thing for she and I, because me and the oldest daughter are really close. We're together a lot, and she is cut from me. Like we have the same general personality.
Nope.
The baby and I were always tight, but she was more of a mama's girl than a daddy's girl. But we have found this connection through music, which is very, very cool. And that's why I wanted to ask you that, because I know your family's really important to you. You take your role as a father very seriously, much as I do. And, and it's just to be able to connect to them in that way, just to share some time with them and get some of their space when they got their phones and everything else all the time, is just very, very cool.
Oh yeah. It really is. It's really cool to be able to have a bedtime ritual that includes being able to read my daughter a boombox book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I mean, as much as I love Dr. Seuss, all the places you could go, you've already gone there once you've read the book once. I don't need to keep reading it, you know. So it's kind of cool that we get to read those things. And my daughter, like, she's a little edgy, you know what I mean, which is kind of cool too, because like I don't know, one of her favorite books last year was Robin. Like she loved all the death, destruction, and mayhem. And before CPS comes to my door, I did explain to her that it was fictional violence. Boy's heart does get ripped out of his chest. That was that was fictional. But no, she loves it, and we get to, I took her to Ghostbusters Afterlife. I took her to
Yeah.
Spider-Man No Way Home. And what was cool with Spider-Man No Way Home was that's a long movie with a lot of fandom call outs, right?
Yep.
That's a movie that's like, hey, remember this? Yeah, this, and so was Afterlife. But um the she enjoyed that film so much that the next weekend after church, when my wife was going to bring her to the movies for her weekend, they were going to go see Sing 2, and she's like, no, can we watch Spider-Man again? And I thought that was like, yes, this is awesome, because I don't want to have to worry about boys either, Jimmy. I know I made the joke about my son's junior prom. I would love not to have to worry about boys with my daughter either. So as
Yeah.
many comic books as I can get her into. But yeah, no, she's super into that. She loves hunting. So for her birthday, we bought her um I don't know, like 40 issues of My Little Pony, but we made sure that we like skipped certain issues in the runs so that when we go to the shops, because, I work for Aftershock
Hmm.
as one of my side hustles. So I visit shops, on the regular throughout Minnesota when she comes with me, and then she can hunt for the books that she's missing. Like, and she digs that. She digs that. So super, super cool to be able to share that with the kids. And again, something that I don't think would be first and foremost if it wasn't for this YouTube hobby and this community around comics and collecting, because there was a time when all Daddy was doing was, I was a director of or chief of operations, director of operations for a long time, but chief of operations for a plastic decorating company, and I'd work super long hours, then come home, try to do the stuff around the house, and sit in my chair. If it wasn't for this and what I'm doing now, I wouldn't be able to share those with my daughter, because she'd probably never know that Daddy likes comic books or that Daddy likes, superheroes. So
No, very cool, man. All right. That's a great place to end this thing, brother. I really do appreciate you coming on. I've had an absolute ball. Just getting to know you a little better and kind of getting your takes. And if you guys, that are watching this, if I'll link all Manny's stuff down in the description below, go over and sub him up. Very interesting channel. You'll get some, it's very well produced. It's very well done. Yeah, definitely go over and check my boy out. He's a lot of fun to watch, and one of the best people in this community that I've had the honor to meet. So definitely go check my cat out. All right, guys, that is it for us today. This has been 10 Questions.